Oh,
Christina,
wow.
it's really great to talk to you today. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm Christina Seilern. I'm an architect. That's about it. I'm an architect. I do buildings. I do many different types of buildings. I trained in the States for many years, so undergrad and graduate, and then I worked in New York for a number of years. I worked for Rafael Viñoly Architects. And then I moved to London and I set up the office of Viñoly in London, and we were doing all of the European projects. And they were mostly large-scale projects. So we did the Walkie Talkie Tower, and we did a theatre, the Curve Theatre in Leicester, and we did a tower in Amsterdam, and research labs, and so a variety of projects. And then the office grew, the Viñoly office grew. We were about, I can't remember, 40, 50, I don't know. And then I had a very interesting character walk into the office asking whether I would do a house in Zimbabwe. And today we still work with this very interesting character. And so there was, I went from working on these huge projects where you'd sit in a meeting room with 40 people at the meeting table, lawyers, accountants, client reps, engineers, planning consultants, you name it, to sitting around a table with a glass of wine talking to a wonderful couple about building a house in Zimbabwe. So that was quite a transition. But I think it was incredibly enriching. And architecturally enriching, because it forced you to have a real human dialogue, which sometimes gets lost when you design towers because you're talking about so many other technical things. So that was nice. It was to me, it was feeling like we were reconnecting to really what it is that we do, which is, we try to defy gravity by putting very heavy material above somebody's head. And so, and how do you do that beautifully, elegantly, sustainably, without screwing up the environment that you're building in, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was that. And then we carried on the work and we grew, and now we're a decent sized office, and we are doing projects of every scale. And I think that's something that I will keep. I feel very happy that we are doing concert halls and projects like that, which are incredibly satisfying to the soul, but also incredibly challenging, interesting. And we are also doing to the smaller scale of furniture design. And I'm right now in the middle of designing a furniture line for ourselves, really, that we may sell, I'm not sure, but and it's very interesting to sort of work on the different scales and yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing, Christina, because you're basically a one-stop architecture shop, and also you do it sustainably. Tell me a little how you got to that point. I mean, I know you studied and then you worked for a big architecture firm, and then you met this great friend who proposed you to do this project in Zimbabwe. How can you operate in this space and do it so well and do it with a heart?
I think that the last sentence that you just said, is do it with a heart, is probably the most important. I think that you have to be ambitious. You have to be, you have to think that you can do anything. I think that's an important thing. And I think that us women sometimes underestimate ourselves. So, and I think that actually Viñoly was really great at that. I remember when I was working for him, when we were going to a meeting in Walkie Talkie, he had just flown in from New York, and he said, "Will you give me a lift to the meeting tomorrow?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing my school run in the morning." He goes, "Oh, great, I'll come." Oh God, I'm going with him to the school run, and he really enjoyed it. And then I had to interview a nanny in the car, right? And it was just like, oh, and I was so embarrassed to do it in front of him. And then I hung up and I turned to him and I said, I just don't know if I can do this. This is when the children were, brand new, just popped out. I just don't know if I can do this. And he said, just do it. And to me, that was the best piece of advice. It wasn't like, okay, let's figure it out. It was just the best piece. It's just do it. Just don't think, just carry on. And I think about that a lot. Whenever you think, oh God, am I going to manage this? Or it's such a competitive environment. It's such a stressful environment a lot of the times, especially, for example, when you're doing somebody's house. It's the process is hard, and the decision making is expensive, right? Every decision you make has such a cost impact, and so it's very stressful for clients. And sometimes you really have to be like, try to make it as easy as possible. And if you ask around friends, there so many of them go, oh my God, it took 2 years. Well, I know, you built a building. That takes time. But this and we are some projects. I mean, there's one project that started in 2008 and it's still building. So it's it's a difficult but very, very, very interesting job. It's very long hours. So it's the quality of the work that you do is directly proportional to the amount of hours you spend thinking and working on it. There's no formula, there are no shortcuts. So I think it's that, and it's resilience. You fail a lot along the way. You lose competitions, you lose jobs, you don't get that bid. There's a lot of things that stumbling blocks along the way. And it's just resilience. It's just sort of saying, okay, let's move on to the next. What's next? So, and then there's huge satisfaction. And I think that really is, when I go on site, I'm here in Greece on site. And when I go on site, I just get it. I just get why. Because sometimes I'm thinking, why am I doing all of this? Why am I not sitting on the beach and relaxing? And then you go on site and you see it and you understand the effort that it took to get to that moment, and then the pride that you get, that line that you drew 100 times and scratch your head over, and does it work, does it not work, and then you see it built. It's just really exciting. And then when you do, a concert hall, for example, and when we opened the Andermatt concert hall and we had the Berlin Philharmonic playing in it, I mean, the emotion of that is something else. It's just sort of you feel so proud. You just designed an instrument for the most unbelievable orchestra in the world, right? So the Berlin Philharmonic is playing in this instrument you designed for them and for all orchestras. So it's sort of those moments are the moments when you really get excited and the other thing is most people have no understanding of what we do, no clue. So they get incredibly impressed by it, because it's just sort of I get incredibly impressed by musicians, because I think that what they do is so abstract. So, and the world that they live in, we understand a fraction of it. So it's you're kind of in that very personal space, very abstract space, and sometimes you feel that only when you speak to another architect they do understand what you're doing, because it's a very focused profession.
Yeah, it's gobbledygook for most people. Christina, what motivates you to keep pushing?
As I said, it's seeing the product. It's really it's feeling proud that you've contributed something. I think that ultimately we architects are quite egocentric, possibly narcissistic, I would say. But there is this thing that you create, like I could never be a gardener, because you cut that plant and it grows back. There's this sort of routine repetition, and we create this, we do a huge effort, and this sometimes difficult process of getting this building up. But then if you've done your job correctly, and if you've done it with passion and with love and with intelligence, then you actually produce something that may mean something for generations to come. And I think that's really the ultimate goal. And for me, it's, people always ask me, what do you prefer doing? Do you like doing residential? Do you like doing offices? Do you like doing performing arts? And I go, I love doing them all. It's not a typology that I seek, but it's a client that I seek. And I say this to my clients, and it's not that I'm trying to suck up to them, or but it's, if you find the right client who will be excited about the vision and be excited about the journey and go through the journey with you, the end product is fantastic. And that's what we got with Zimbabwe, is that we, I didn't know them, and we clicked, and we're still great friends today, but and we're still working together today. But there was this sort of understanding, and it was incredibly difficult to build in Zimbabwe. I mean, imagine, we had elections, we went from Zim dollars to US dollars. I mean, it was just every obstacle along the way. At some point, some of the glass got lost somewhere in Africa. Nobody knew where the glass went. I mean, it was just sort of incredibly complex. But through these adversities, we managed to build this building, which is kind of extraordinary, the fact that we did it there. And it's the same for all the projects, as if you have an alignment with the client, and you feel incredibly proud of what you're doing. And so I always get very excited if I have a strong, intelligent client who is willing to go through this journey. It's like they're paying this huge amount of money for your vision. You feel very honored by that. You feel very blessed by that.
It's amazing, Christina, and you've done so well. It's really impressive. Tell me, what do you think is your superpower? I mean, if I listen to you like that, I think you are the most incredibly resilient person, and you obviously love the relationships with your clients. But what would you say is your superpower? How would you think that you got to where you are today?
I think there are no superpowers. I think it has a lot to do with experience and doing it over and over and over again. A journalist once said to me that he says, talent seems to be sprinkled randomly. And I really thought about that, because I thought that's true. It's sort of, I think it's something that, some people have more of it and some people have less of it, and that's just, who knows why, how. But that said, talent only reveals itself through work. So it's like, you can only be a good violinist if you practice, and then you may have talent or you may not have talent. But unless, I don't know if I'm a talented violinist, because I've never played the violin and I will never know. But possibly, or you could be a talented violinist, we don't know, right? But the point is that you only become a talented violinist if you practice. And it's exactly the same with architecture. The more you draw, the more you do it, the more you will understand how to do it. And last night my niece asked me, I was drawing, we were playing cards and I was drawing lines, and she said, only an architect can draw such straight lines. And she goes, I bet you can't draw a circle. And I drew a perfect circle. And they were all impressed, but I was like, but because that's what I do all day long. I draw circles, I draw lines, I draw squares, so it just, but it's also, I think it's, at school, you are taught to intellectually grow. And I think the one thing that's never taught is the visual growth, and how to train your eye and how to see things. And I see things in drawings, and I realize that not only now, and Viñoly used to have that, because I see things in drawings that the younger architects may not see, because they haven't trained that much. And so it's sort of, I can look at something in 2 seconds, get it. And that's just the training of the eye. And so, but it just makes the job easier. So it just means that you spend less time learning, and now you can spend more time thinking. And that's the switch when I can't remember, I think it was Ampe who said you only become an architect when you're 50, and I 100% agree, and I'm 51, so I'm a brand new architect. But it's this thing where before that you're like, oh my God, how am I going to waterproof this, and how am I going to, how am I going to make this work, and this all this learning curve, you're held back by this learning curve, and then suddenly you kind of free yourself from the learning curve, and then you can really start thinking. And that's when it really becomes interesting, because your career really starts, and you really, you've done a few buildings, you've done the experience, but now you can really, why am I doing this? And actually this summer I'm writing a book about why am I doing this, and I'm not writing it for anyone but myself, because I want to understand, right? It's sort of, you want to understand why you're why you're here, and what is it that you're trying to do. My daughter says YOLO, you only live once, and I think it's a really important thing to remind yourself. It's sort of, how do you, how can you constantly improve? And it's not a professional thing, it's really a personal thing, but I think it's all interlinked. I think it's, I think we're blessed to work. It's a gift, and I think that, it's really hard to work and be a mother. Let's be frank about it. It's not an easy thing.
Absolutely.
It's really hard because we also have this stupid thing called guilt. So we always feel guilty that we're not good enough as a mother, that we're not doing enough at work, and that's all stupid noise, right? And you have to get rid of it. But I think that actually, the moment when it all made sense is that I came home and there was my daughter going through my book and showing it to her friends, and I just thought, oh my God, okay, I'm okay as a mother, because I was always like, oh no, I've got to travel, I'm not there. I was always running to the sports day and this and that, and always arriving late, and so I think it's sort of, ultimately, I think being a good parent is just loving and inspiring, and that's all you can do. But it's hard. It's really hard to do both. So I can't remember what the question was, but
yeah, I think we move on to the next one. What would your top tips be for other women, Christina?
I think that it's not listening to anybody apart from your own voice. I remember it was really, the time when we were, as a generation, all of us getting married and having children, and a lot of women chose, and I think it's a totally valid choice. And I'm wondering whether whether this is shifting and man will also have that choice. But you choose whether you go in the direction of, working, or if you can afford it, and that's also a very privileged position to be in, then maybe you don't want to work. And I remember that in my generation, a lot of women were saying, well, my husband, he's in banking, he makes a lot more money than me, what's the point? And I remember even a friend of ours saying, Christina, you're going to give up your little architecture thing and focus on your children. And there's all these things going, oh my God, and then one friend said, this is the only thing that will ever only be yours. Your children are not yours, your husband's not yours, your homes are not yours, nothing is yours. This is the only thing that will only be yours. And I just thought, just pull through if you love your job, if it makes sense, whatever. But I just see today where, it's sort of, I now only understand why, and because now I have this ability to get these wonderful projects and work with interesting people. And yesterday I was presenting a project to a new client, and she's so smart, and I was just sort of enjoying that so much, and we was both so happy as a result of. And this was the first time I was presenting it. And that these moments make it worth it, because it's sort of, you present something, you're like, oh my God, are they going to like it? They're not going to like it. And it's such a personal thing, right? And then it works, and then, you feel gratified. So I think it's really to try to understand your own voice, because that's also not an easy thing to do, is to sort of really understand what is it that you want to do, and then just follow that and not listen to anyone or your siblings, or mother, or friends, or whatever, just to find that, and then do it with passion, and then I don't know, also I think allow yourself to screw up along the way. Everybody makes mistakes. And so I think forgive yourself. I think just as you should forgive other people who screw up, I think you should forgive yourself. And I think that's really the key to resilience, because it's just sort of, if you don't beat yourself up over things. And I think it's a generational. I'm going to tell you a story which is a bit name droppy, but it doesn't matter because I think it's an important one, and I hope the lady in question will forgive me for saying this. But I think it has to do with generations and the way women are perceived generally. So when I tell people that I do concert halls, I get more credit than man, because it's such a technical type of building typology, and it's so abstract that they get very impressed, and more than man, because man, it's like, okay, that's normal, they're technical. And I was once at a party, which I think you were too, and in Munich, and it was sort of a last hurrah party for a friend of ours, and there was Hillary Clinton there, and Hillary Clinton had been my graduation speaker. So I go up to her and I go, Madam Secretary, I really wanted to meet you in person because you were my graduation speaker centuries ago. And she goes, oh my God, this was centuries ago, and blah, blah, blah. And we are having this chat, and she goes, what do you do now? And I said, I'm an architect. And she goes, oh, great, what do? Do you do residential? Always first question I get asked. And I thought, okay, it's fine. I go, yes, I do residential. I love doing residential, and I do other things. And she goes, what other things? And I go, well, I do concert halls, for example. And she goes, oh my God, that's technical. And I went, oh my God, not Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, who gave the most incredible speech in Beijing in 2000, right? She said, women's rights are human rights. I mean, you've got to listen to the speech because it's quite an extraordinary speech.
Yeah.
And I just thought and then she kind of realized and took herself back and go Wellesley. But it's this thing, and I think that somebody who is as enlightened, as driven, as impressive, you may like her, you may not like her, but she's impressive. There's no other way of putting it. No doubt. And that this is the reaction. And so it's, I think, endemically, I guess, is society. We put ourselves in a position where we may not be able to do that. And actually, we're not only able, but we just do it as well and sometimes better than man, or there is no difference. It's so powerful you say that, Christina, and thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly how it is. And I think so many of these sort of, they're still intrinsically masculine, and we need to change that. Yeah. But I think I think that that's my daughter calling. I think I don't think we have. There doesn't need to be an aggressive or a man against women. I really don't believe in that. I think it has to be. I'm incredibly fortunate that I have somebody who not only, supports it, but is proud of it. Is not emasculated by the success. I mean, he's as successful, so that's fine. But you see what I'm saying? But some men need the ego, and need somebody to look after them and cater after them. And I think that I was incredibly lucky or clever, I don't know, but I chose somebody who is in it in the journey with me and has helped enormously, just as much as I hope I'm helping him. And I think that's important. And it's not so much about equality. It's just about, it's life. It's sort of, it makes we have a very interesting dialogue. That's important. Yeah. And it wasn't always like that. I married a Greek at the beginning. It was a bit macho and where's my orange juice kind of thing. And I said, well, you married a German, sorry. But but I think that the minute it does become more equal, I think that actually it's respectful. It's respect on both sides. I think it's very healthy for the marriage, and I think it's so I don't know. I think hopefully our daughters and sons will have a much healthier relationship. And I think I still don't think it's there. And if you see what's happening and everyone's invited and all of that, I think there's a lot of shift and anxiety still going on. But but I think doing things like what you're doing is so key, because it's really about talking. Right? It's about making awareness.
Communicating, absolutely, raising the visibility. I completely agree. Christina, my last question would be, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Or what is your dream of where you would like to be in sort of, in the future?
I mean, my profession is so slow. If I'm talking professionally now, my profession is so slow that give me a 20-year vision and I can tell you. And I don't know. It's a difficult. I mean, I just want to keep being able to do wonderful buildings and being able to think about them and being able to write about it and talk about it and really just intellectually keep being stimulated, because that's all it is. It's not about the money. The money is not good. It's uninteresting. And it's really about the intellectual stimulation. And I was reading about Susan Sontag this morning at breakfast, and I was just like, wow, she really was interesting and interested. And it's a bit that, it's a sort of, how do you keep living a life which is meaningful. And it's not about people, party, gossip, couldn't care less, right? I mean, all of that is fun. I mean, it's fun. I mean, of course, I do all of it, but it's fun. But it's ultimately, I think there is, I want to live a meaningful life, and so and the issue is that I need other people to help me do that, because I need clients, I need people to build it, I need contractors. But it's just to keep pushing that, and then hoping as a mother that my children find something like that too. That's that they become independent, that they don't rely on us, and that they find their own passion and go out in the world and thrive on an intellectual level.
Absolutely. Christina, thank you so much. Super exciting to chat to you.
And you too, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah.